Welcome one, welcome all to Novelties Movie Podcast Special. No, it's not a podcast. You don't have to click off. I won't need that long. I just want to talk to you about the top 10 movies of the year. Yes, I referenced the podcast. Yes, you're more than welcome to look in the description, see where the podcast is linked, and I would love for you to check it out where I just talk about movies. Yes, I'm very mean to movies, so I think it's about time that I'm nice to movies. So here you are, the top 10 movies of the year. Here we go. So number 10 in the top 10 movies of the year, we have Ready or Not. And this one hurt because I wasn't that big of a fan of it, but I did appreciate its artistic value. So sometimes you get those movies where it's like, oh, I'm okay on that movie. And then the next thing you know, people are like, oh, I'm thinking about seeing that movie. And they're like, you gotta see it, drop everything and see it. And that's what Ready or Not was doing to me. I actually appreciated what they were going for and they executed in some of those things. And I think that with this movie that was, to me, a very weak year in movies, this movie was able to execute it in a way that kind of made it all worthwhile. I really liked a lot of the performances. I mean, it was a lot of things that was done right. Great directing across the board. It was just a silly story that they just somehow managed to make relevant. I thought it was cool. And that's how you crack the top 10 of the best movies of the year. Number 9 is The Art of Self-Defense. I had very low expectations for this movie, and that always helps when this is going on. So this is a very different movie, but I appreciated it. I love these movies that can tell a story that's really not that much of a story and kind of make it fascinating to see. I really like character-driven stories, and this is very character-driven as a movie. It was one of the best art house films of the year. That's probably why you've never even heard of it and why I just didn't have that commercial acclaim. But this is definitely some of Jesse Eisenberg's best work. And if he can keep doing projects like this, he might be able to have a resurgence just going off of what he thought would be the heat of Zombieland Double Tap, which probably won't do for him what he thought he did. But if he keep making movies like this, he can make a name. Kind of like Shia LaBeouf is doing. 8 is Parasite. Parasite, directed by Bong Joon-ho, is making a lot of waves in the with the award shows, and it's for a good reason. This thing came out and tore it up in all of the film festivals in Korea, and it just kept making noise. Why? Because it's just a very brilliant story. Now, when I say brilliant, I mean its execution was brilliant. I mean, it was just a story about, a con artist, but it was, when I say con artist, it's like this apostrophe that you can't see because it starts out, oh, this person's a con, but it turns out that the whole family is con artists. And to see, how that develops, how that can backfire, I thought that was just cool. And I like, how they did it. So in movies, you got a bunch of themes and stuff like that you would never really pay attention to if you're not, a dork like me watching a million movies every month. But you see a lot of themes, and even if you don't, you can feel the themes and you can feel them. Big commentary on social classism in this movie, and I think that it was done really well. I think we need more projects like this, and I think that I just had a lot of fun putting this as number 8 because sometimes movies don't truly deserve to be where they're ranked, but relevance can kind of make it work. Speaking of relevance making it work, speaking of relevance bringing to number 7 Avengers Endgame. So I was one of those people who was kind of like, it's kind of on the fence about Avengers Endgame. And it's funny because it's kind of a polarizing movie because you got some people who are just completely against Avengers Endgame. And then you got some people like, come on, man, Avengers Endgame was incredible. I thought that it lacked on a lot of respects, but at the same time, there were some scenes in Avengers Endgame that gave you a feeling of adrenaline that you don't get from any other movie this year. Now, I thought that so many things from the story was lacking that this thing could have easily, based on what it offered at its height, could have been a lot higher. Could have been number 1. Some people somewhere, I don't know, will argue that this could be a number 1 because that's how big this could be when it was working. That's how good it could be when it was working. And that's how it landed at number 7. I'm sure everybody's seen Avengers Endgame. And if you haven't, it's worth your time. Just for the action alone, it's worth it. So good job to the Russo brothers. Cleveland. No. Number 6 is Joker, Todd Phillips' passion project. I really was on the fence about Joker too, right? Because I think that as a narrative, it's kind of being over celebrated. But what's really being celebrated that I have to acknowledge is the performance from one Joaquin Phoenix. So I hope I'm saying his name right. He definitely showed everybody what he was capable of. Not me. He's always been incredible to me. He's been incredible in Gladiator to me, and he was incredible in The Signs. I've seen him play this wide spectrum of actors. It's still some ranges I still haven't seen him test, but this one, the demented, sinister, broken character, this is something that he wanted to test out. So he did it, and it worked. Now, with that being said, I don't know what will be the future of him with these movies. I think that kind of hurts the overall impact of the movie because we would love to see more of these. But I mean, just an incredible performance was able to carry this movie. I thought that some of the twists that was in there, it didn't necessarily work, but because the acting, the transformation, which is what this movie was really about, because this is an origin story at the end of the day. The transformation was just one of the best we've seen of the year, and nothing can match it. The third act in this movie, when everything kind of hits it, is everything is just getting intense, and they deliver. When you think, where could it go from here? They deliver. And on them delivering on that promise that they made to you, the whole movie is just building up to this guy being a demented killer, a supervillain, an arch nemesis, one of our greatest fictional heroes. They pay it off. And for that, this thing easily deserves to be sitting at number 6 on the best of the year. Number 5 is How to Train Your Dragon 3. So I think that this was probably a lot more fun for adults because this was closing out a lot of story arcs that was superseding this movie. And I think that they did really well with it. Animation was great, but I won't go that much into a kid's movie. Just know that it was one of the best narratives that we had this year, some of the best animation that we had this year. And if you haven't seen How to Train Your Dragon 3, rent it for your kids or whatever. Number 4 is Toy Story 4. So speaking of kids movies, well, fuck that. I'm not gonna lie. This isn't a kids movie. This was my movie, all right? I'm 30 years old. So Toy Story was my baby. Okay, so this was mine. And I loved it. I loved it. I love that this thing I referred to it earlier when I was talking about Joker. Character is big, and for this one, they really paid special care to their character of Woody. They gave him a story that kind of really highlighted the best qualities of Woody, what made him Woody, what made him Andy's favorite toy. We saw that play out in a much different way this time, and they brought in even something that wasn't a toy just to make sure that they can nail home the idealism that Woody carried, that loyalty to Andy in so many ways, and having to balance that with who he was as a person. I'm talking about toys right now, man. But you get a great send-off for one of the most iconic characters that we've seen in movies. Maybe ever. I don't know. Pixar has that effect. Number 3 is John Wick 3. So listen, I could have easily put this as number 1. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. And it's funny because this is when bias comes into the play, because good and damn well that you're not seeing one of the best narratives that you've ever seen. You're not seeing one of the strongest scripts you've ever seen. You're seeing some of the best stunt choreography that you've ever seen. And this movie is basically a video game. Now, if this movie was based on a video game, we all know that it'd be fucking terrible, but it wasn't. It just felt like a video game. It was smooth as a video game. I'm one of those guys who actually watch cutscenes. I have an appreciation for them, and this was like great cutscenes, and the story was solid enough to not take you out of the action. But trust me, this movie was only made for action. I think that they did want story initially. They actually put story in the first John Wick, but when they seen it had that cult following, they was like, you know what? Let's just get a people what they want. They did it in John Wick 2, where the story was like, man, video game cutscene starts off an hour and a half of action. That's what we got on John Wick 3, and I want more. I want more right now. You gotta wait like a fucking year and change. Number two is Spider-Man Far From Home. So I thought that this was definitely one of the best Spider-Mans, but it's funny because as good as a Spider-Man movie could be, sometimes they're just really not that good. They just kind of miss the mark. They become unforgettable and you're just trying to find a way to forget. That can happen. But I think that they really know where they want to go with Spider-Man now, and I mean Marvel as a franchise, they know where they want to go with Spider-Man as a franchise, the Marvel studio, and you can sense it, and you can sense that's why when the whole thing with the Marvel and with Disney and Sony was going down, in the back of my mind, I knew that they had to make a deal because you saw in this movie that they know exactly where they want to go with this character, and it's working. So we saw this working again, where Peter Parker is growing up in front of us when he's having to deal with the consequences of him being a hero, him not always wanting that responsibility and trying to find a better vessel than him to carry on the responsibility of protecting the world, which is a lot. You even hear him in the movie saying, he's just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, just trying to detract from that. And the movie is about him accepting that role. And it's just incredible to see. Now, he paid for it at the end of the day, but at the same time, it was a beautiful character arc. I really like how it was executed. It's one of the best action movies that you can get this year. It's fun. It's funny. I like seeing Samuel Jackson play, kind of a parody of Samuel Jackson. I thought a lot worked in this movie, and I can't wait for the next Spider-Man. They're doing good things with Spider-Man and Marvel. They are. And number one is Knives Out. I was floored by this movie. So I'm not gonna lie, I had very low expectations for Knives Out. I even seen on the when the promotion run started, and they were like, "Oh, it's one of the best movies of the year." I'm like, get that shit out of here. It's not gonna be the best movie of the year. Did you see Murder on the Orient Express? Like, it's just something about these Clue movies. And the murder mystery movie, that Adam Sandler movie on Netflix. Like, look, Hollywood cannot make decent Clue movies. Okay, it's just not. It's just something that doesn't work, and it's just something that we're just disinterested in. So I'm like, no, I'm betting against Knives Out. They can try to get the cast in there. They had an incredible cast who all did great. I would single people out. I could single Daniel Craig out. I could single Chris Evans out, but I won't. I won't. Everybody in here was just doing exactly what they needed to do to enhance their characters and make you relate to them. So by the time the ending comes, you're like, yeah, that's the ending that was deserved. So I really liked a lot of the twists and turns, cinematography. Of course, the acting was incredible. I really thought that it was a good lesson at the end of the day, too. I mean, sometimes a movie really delivers everything that you need. No gaps. They could have easily had plenty of parts where they didn't know that you didn't know what was going on. It could have easily confused you, but you didn't get confused. Why? Because the story editing was insane. I mean, every functionality of this movie, it hit, it worked. And this is hands down the most enjoyable movie of this year. Everything at every facet like this movie, and it is hands down the number one movie of the year. Congratulations, Knives Out. Whatever the fuck me saying it's number one gets it. It deserves.